The ocean's secrets are washing ashore. But it's not magic, it's a grim reality. Pollution, climate change, and human greed are pushing marine life to the brink. Not just giant mammals and predators. Even a mermaid has been found out of water. Join us to watch the chilling truth behind this haunting discovery.
This pilot whale is stranded, starving to death.
Off the southern coast of Thailand, a pilot whale was found stranded and starving. It couldn't swim away or dive below. For days, rescuers tried to protect it, but nothing could change what was happening inside. Its stomach was full, not with food, but with 80 plastic bags, weighing 8 kilograms. There was no space left for any nourishment, leaving the whale too weak to survive. Despite efforts to save it, the damage was too great. After it died, the plastic was found tangled inside, showing the harsh reality of what it had been carrying. The ocean had returned what it couldn't break down, leaving behind a clear message. Toxic tide.
Scores of dead fish littering the beach.
There's just dead fish everywhere.
Along the west coast of Florida, the beach looked like something out of a nightmare. Lifeless fish of all sizes were scattered across the sand, their bodies washed ashore with the tide. The air felt heavy, carrying a strange, scratchy sting that made people cough and their throats burn. Some visitors left early, unable to handle the irritation. The culprit? Red tide, a harmful algal bloom known as Carnage brevis. This toxic algae sucks the oxygen out of the water, suffocating marine life. When ocean waves thrash around the algae, toxins are released into the air, causing respiratory issues for anyone nearby. Scientists say red tide occurs naturally, but warmer ocean temperatures could be making it worse and more frequent. It's a haunting reminder of how connected everything is: air, water, and life itself. Silent bloom.
This is a fish kill of unprecedented magnitude in San Francisco Bay. In terms of the number of fish, I would just say that it's an uncountable number of fish.
An eerie scene unfolded along the shores of the San Francisco Bay Area. Thousands of lifeless fish washed ashore, leaving behind a foul stench that grew worse with the rising temperatures. This wasn't just another case of marine pollution, it was an unprecedented red tide that had been lurking in the water since late July. Experts were stunned. They called it a fish demise of unimaginable scale, something never before seen in the area, and the numbers were staggering. So many lifeless fish that counting them was impossible. But the real concern, what was visible on the shore, was only the beginning. Beneath the surface, the damage ran much deeper. As the red tide continued to bloom, it became clear that this was far from over. Deepwater disaster. In 2010, the Deepwater Horizon rig sank in the Gulf of Mexico, marking the largest oil spill in U.S. maritime history. It all started with a surge of oil and gas from BP's Macondo well, which caused the drill pipe to buckle. The blowout preventer failed, leading to an explosion that took 11 people and unleashed a massive oil spill. For 87 days, oil gushed into the Gulf, eventually spilling about 3.2 million barrels, enough to cover thousands of square miles of water. The environmental damage was devastating, impacting fishing and tourism across Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. The financial toll was massive, costing over $20 billion in fines and settlements. Yet, despite this catastrophe, deepwater drilling remains a key part of U.S. oil production today. Mysterious waters. Along the Odor River between Germany and Poland, a strange and troubling sight appeared. Tons of lifeless fish floating to the surface. The smell was overwhelming, and the sight was even worse. No one knew exactly what caused it. Authorities ran tests, ruling out mercury and heavy metals, but they did find something unusual: high levels of salt, possibly from a chemical leak. Yet, the source remained a mystery. Over 2,000 police officers, 300 firefighters, and countless volunteers rushed to clear the banks of the fish, trying to contain the situation. But the questions only grew louder. If the water was fatal to fish, what did that mean for birds, pets, and even humans? People were warned to stay away, but locals were frustrated, claiming they weren't informed soon enough. For now, the cause remains unknown, leaving an unsettling silence along the poisoned riverbanks. In 2021, the new year kicked off with a surprising scene on Bali's iconic beaches. Instead of fireworks and celebrations, there were heaps of plastic waste washed up on the shore. Among all that trash, there was a vulnerable mermaid laying in the mess. The footage went viral in no time. People gathered thinking what could have brought this legendary being on shore. After some digging, we found out that it was a social awareness tactic. Dressed up like a mermaid, she laid among piles of trash, grabbing everyone's attention to the pollution issue. Her bold protest went viral fast, shining a light on the sad state of Bali's beaches. Locals scrambled to clean up the mess, and in no time the beach was clean. Her message was clear: clear the oceans or be prepared to lose your association towards it. But seriously, how bad are we really doing? Trust me, it's worse than you can imagine. Just look at these stories of how and when we have caused damage to the exotic marine life in our environment. Mysterious wash-up. In early April 2021, the coastal shores of Ghana bore an eerie sight. Dozens of lifeless fish and over 80 melon-headed whales washed ashore without warning. Locals, stunned by the unusual event, hurried to collect the sea creatures, some planning to sell or consume them. But soon after, the Food and Drugs Authority issued a stern warning, urging against eating or selling the mysterious catch. Initial investigations pointed to stress as the cause, but further analysis by the University of Ghana revealed dangerously low chemical oxygen levels in the water. Environmental experts suggested that rising temperatures in March likely led to oxygen deficiencies in the sea, possibly explaining the mass effect. Although chemical poisoning was ruled out, the true cause remained uncertain, leaving the community with unanswered questions and an uneasy feeling about the ocean's changing tides. Toxic mystery.
It's been called an environmental catastrophe. Tons of dead fish washing up in the river Oder between Germany and Poland.
Along the banks of the river Oder, straddling Germany and Poland, an environmental disaster of staggering proportions unfolded. Tons of fish washed ashore, victims of an unknown pollutant poisoning the waters. Volunteers raced against time, removing over 10 tons of carcasses to prevent further contamination of the food chain. Initial fears of mercury poisoning were dismissed, but unnaturally high salt levels left investigators baffled. The crisis deepened as authorities faced criticism for delayed warnings, allowing the pollution to spread unchecked. Swimming and fishing were banned, and local fishermen watched their livelihoods crumble. The ripple effects of this catastrophe threatened not only wildlife, but also the burgeoning tourism industry. With no clear answers and a cleanup projected to take years, the haunting question remains: what poisoned the river Oder? Toxic tides. Along the shores of Tampa Bay, the scene was eerie. Piles of lifeless fish lay scattered across the beaches, their stench hanging heavy in the air. Even rays and sharks were among the casualties, their lifeless bodies washing ashore. Crews worked tirelessly, collecting over 6 tons of gone fish, but the waves kept bringing more. A loggerhead turtle was also found, a haunting reminder of the widespread impact. Experts pointed to red tide, harmful algal blooms releasing toxins that choke marine life. Winds and rain likely made things worse, pushing the fish into concentrated areas. Despite high levels of red tide, beaches remained open, leaving many uneasy. Local biologists warned that more fish could still wash ashore until the bloom finally runs out of nutrients. For now, the waters of Tampa Bay remain tainted, their secrets lurking beneath the toxic tides. Paradise lost.
A beautiful summer Sunday across much of the Aloha State today, but not all was perfect in paradise.
We're here at Camilo Point, and it is unaffectionately known as Trash Beach.
Hawaii's beaches are legendary, known for their breathtaking beauty and crystal clear waters. Yet, on the Big Island, a different picture emerged: a shoreline suffocated by plastic debris. At Camilo Point, grimly nicknamed Trash Beach, car parts, shoes, and endless fragments of plastic litter the sand. Volunteer cleanup organizers called it a catchment system for trash, where ocean currents trap the world's floating debris along Hawaii's shores. Globally, 18 billion pounds of plastic waste end up in the ocean each year, enough to place 5 grocery bags of trash on every foot of coastline. Despite volunteers collecting over 1,400 pounds of waste in one afternoon, countless microplastics remained, posing a fatal threat to marine life. These tiny particles are often mistaken for food, entering the food chain and ultimately impacting human health. To tackle the microplastic menace, Canadian engineering students have developed a sand-sifting vacuum that efficiently separates plastic from the sand. But even with technological solutions, volunteers like Lamson stress that true change begins at the source, reducing plastic usage worldwide, because without change, paradise may be lost beneath a sea of plastic. Silent shores.
Ocean pollution is likely to blame for the deaths of several whales along the shores of New York and New Jersey.
On the coastlines of New York and New Jersey, the waves carried grim visitors. 7 whales washed ashore in just a month, their massive bodies lifeless on the sand. As locals gathered, whispers spread. What could be making these gentle giants? Some pointed fingers at offshore wind projects, but environmentalists argue otherwise. They believe the answer lay deeper in the growing tide of ocean pollution. Plastic waste, tangled fishing gear, and toxic runoff continue to threaten marine life. Environmental advocates urged lawmakers to act swiftly, calling for stronger policies to cut down plastic pollution and make shipping and fishing safer. They believe that only bold measures can save the oceans and protect its creatures. Meanwhile, the shores remain silent, waiting for the tides to bring more answers, or perhaps more victims. Fatal drift. If you're wondering how a fish can eat a piece of plastic, take a look at this one. A massive whale shark gilded gracefully, its mouth wide open, filtering water in search of its tiny prey. But lurking nearby was a piece of plastic, drifting innocently yet dangerously close. Whale sharks feed by gulping in vast amounts of water, filtering out plankton and small fish. In doing so, they often suck in floating debris, including plastic bags that can get lodged in their gills or digestive systems. This time, the shark dodged a bullet and narrowly avoided the plastic floating by, but not all sea creatures get so lucky. Tons of marine animals confuse plastic for food, which can lead to serious blockages or even poisoning. With every piece of trash that ends up in the ocean, the risks keep piling up. Ominous shores. In 2023, the Gulf of Texas witnessed something unsettling. Thousands of lifeless fish were scattered along Bryan Beach near the Brazos River. It wasn't just a few here and there. It was a haunting blanket of rotting menhaden fish, their bodies washed ashore in an eerie display. Officials blamed low oxygen levels in the water, a result of unusually warm temperatures. But whispers of other possibilities lingered. Maybe algae, maybe chemicals from a passing ship, or maybe something nobody could explain. People who saw it couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just a natural occurrence. It was as if the ocean itself was warning us, pushing its demise to the surface as a grim reminder of a world changing too fast. The water seemed hostile, almost rejecting life. Was it just coincidence, or was it another sign of nature unraveling? It's hard not to wonder as the waves keep coming, indifferent to the mystery they carry. Dark tides.
An oil spill along the coastline of Tamil Nadu at Ennore is polluting several beaches after 2 ships collided at Ennore's port anchorage on Saturday.
Off the coast of Tamil Nadu, near Chennai, an oil spill born from the collision of 2 ships at the Ennore port anchorage tainted the waters, spreading its dark stain along the coastline. It's been days since the spill, and despite frantic cleanup efforts, the sea remains poisoned. Fishermen keep their boats ashore, haunted by the thought of toxic waters. The markets were quiet too, as locals feared the fish might carry the ocean's curse. But the damage runs deeper than what meets the eye. Reports of lifeless turtles washing ashore were just the beginning. Experts warned that most of the devastation lies hidden beneath the waves, sinking into the ecosystem. The oil coats the sand and suffocates marine life, threatening the delicate balance of the coastal world. It's a grim reminder of how easily human actions can turn the sea against itself. And as the tides continue to carry the slick further, one has to wonder, what other secrets does this polluted water hold? Poisoned waters. Aerial footage revealed a shocking sight. Untreated sewage flowing straight into Langstone Harbor in Hampshire for over 2 days. Locals couldn't believe their eyes, but the sad truth is, this wasn't an isolated incident. According to a report by the Environmental Audit Committee, not a single river in England is free from pollution. They found a nasty mix of sewage, agricultural waste, and plastic contaminating the waterways. It's a chemical cocktail that's harming ecosystems and putting public health at risk. Water companies, farmers, and even regular citizens are partly to blame, whether it's from poor waste management or flushing the wrong things down the toilet. The report calls for stricter regulations and better water monitoring systems. But the real challenge lies in finding the political will and funds to clean up this mess. It's a problem that's been kept under wraps for too long, but now the dirty secret is out. Oil spill.
Encontramos manchas en realidad oleosas de una espuma mezclada con hidrocarburo.
Nuestra playa todavía sigue contaminada.
In January 2022, the Pacific waters off Peru's coast were tainted by an oil spill, sparking a dispute over just how much crude escaped. Repsol, the Spanish oil company at the heart of it, claims around 10,400 barrels spilled, while Peruvian officials estimate it closer to 11,900 barrels. Regardless of the numbers, the damage was undeniable. Waves carry oily streaks, and the shores are littered with lifeless seabirds. Repsol insisted it had recovered nearly 98% of the spill, but the evidence told a different story. Gone cormorants, Humboldt penguins, and pelicans were stark reminders of the environmental catastrophe. Local officials and journalists saw white foam formations floating ominously in the sea, a haunting sign of the damage beneath. The United Nations labeled it the worst ecological disaster in Peru's recent history, highlighting the urgent need for accountability and action. Poison waves.
This morning, a massive oil spill spreading off the coast of Southern California.
To see the environmental impact on our shore, to me, it's absolutely devastating.
In 2021, Southern California's beautiful beaches were hit hard by a huge oil spill that dumped 126,000 gallons of toxic sludge into the Pacific Ocean. The problem? A busted pipeline linked to an oil platform run by Beta Offshore. As the mess spread out over 13 square miles, clumps of tar started washing up on the shore, leaving a terrible mark on the coast. Local officials were really shaken, calling the whole situation devastating and infuriating. While cleanup crews rushed to fix the damage, the hidden dangers of the spill were the most worrying part. It brought back memories of the Deepwater Horizon disaster, a harsh reminder of how long oil spills can impact the environment. Even years later, that disaster still messes with marine life. Reports of oil-covered animals and dead fish along the California coastline stirred up fears about lasting effects. Once again, the ocean was left scarred by human carelessness, reminding everyone that drilling comes with a heavy cost. Fish carnage.
Removing millions of rotting fish from a river in the outback.
I haven't got a time frame at the moment, but I anticipate it will be this week, and obviously for the people of India, I want that to be sooner rather than later.
In 2023, something really strange happened at a river in Australia when millions of fish turned up cold. The contractors had a huge job on their hands cleaning up all those rotting fish. So what caused all this? Officials said it was the super high temperatures and the falling floodwaters that drained the oxygen from the water, leaving the fish gasping for air. And believe it or not, this wasn't the first time this has happened. Back in 2018 and 2019, there were similar fish die-offs in Menindee because of tough weather conditions. Scientists are on the case trying to figure out how to prevent this from happening again. Let's hope they find a solution soon. Toxic tide. In 2024, Volos, Greece, the sea turned into a grim spectacle as thousands of cold fish covered the coast on August 27th. The stench was unbearable, and the scene was nothing short of eerie. The government declared a state of emergency, urging locals to avoid swimming and fishing. But what caused this sudden catastrophe? Experts pointed to Lake Karla, which had been dried up in 1962 to combat malaria but filled up again after heavy rains and floods. Freshwater fish from the lake were swept into the salty Pagasetic Gulf, triggering mass effect. Over 100 tons of rotting fish were collected along the coastline, stretching for kilometers. The incident wasn't just an environmental disaster, it also impacted the local economy and tourism. Now, with an investigation underway, the region faces a tough question. How did this happen, and could it have been prevented? River of Demise. In August 2022, the Odor River, winding through Central Europe, became the stage for an environmental disaster that left locals stunned. 10 tons of fish surfaced, spreading across Germany's banks, while volunteers and fishermen scrambled to clean up the grim scene. A fisherman of 40 years admitted he'd never seen anything like it. What caused this mass die-off remains a mystery. Laboratory tests revealed high salinity levels, but ruled out mercury poisoning. Authorities were puzzled, with Germany's environment minister calling it an ecological catastrophe. The river, flowing from the Czech Republic to the Baltic Sea, was now a shadow of its former self, and no one knows how long it will take to recover. Desperate feast.
Birds stayed away from eating these dead fish, but now with a limited food supply, they're left eating these toxic fish.
He's very obviously a victim of red tide because you see no injuries.
At first, the birds avoided these lifeless fish washed ashore, but with food becoming scarce, they had no choice but to eat the toxic fish left behind by the red tide. Almost immediately, they started getting sick. At Wildlife Inc. in Bradenton Beach, rescuers are seeing more birds than ever before. One of the first victims was a laughing gull, showing no injuries but clearly poisoned by the toxic fish. The situation is getting worse. As more fish die, hungry birds are forced to eat whatever they can find, even if it's dangerous. Wildlife centers are doing their best, clearing out cages to make room for the sick birds. But recovery takes time, and as long as the fish keep washing ashore, the birds will continue to struggle. It's a harsh cycle, and no one knows when it will end. Shoreline shadows. Something eerie is happening along the shoreline. A recent footage captured several sharks lingering unusually close to the coast, almost as if they were avoiding the deep waters. Locals tried everything to scare them off, but the creatures kept returning, circling the shallows like shadows that wouldn't fade. Experts believe water pollution might be behind this bizarre behavior, disrupting their natural habitat and forcing them closer to human shores. It's unsettling to think that even the ocean's fiercest predators are trying to escape the mess we've made. Makes you wonder, if the sea's rulers are this affected, what hope is left for the rest of the ocean's creatures? Fishing for change. For the fishing communities near the Nadu River, pollution isn't just an environmental issue, it's a daily struggle. Fishermen have been out of work for over a month, watching their livelihoods disappear as fish retreat to the deepest parts of the reservoir, fleeing the contamination. This isn't just about dirty water, it's about families struggling to make ends meet.
Se ha visto afectado enormemente ya los pescadores más de un mes de no poder realizar la pesca.
But the trash keeps coming, flowing from the Guatemalan side with no end in sight. Despite numerous cleanup efforts, the problem has only worsened. Just 4 years ago, legal action was taken against the mayor of Puerto Barrios over similar issues. Yet today, the pollution is at an all-time high. It's clear that real change won't come from cleanup efforts alone. It's about raising awareness and fostering environmental responsibility. Education and ecological consciousness are essential, not just for future generations, but for those living through this crisis right now. The time to act is now, before the river of pollution washes away the hopes of an entire community. Plastic problem. Just across from the Sydney Harbor Bridge, Tampa Bay Beach looks like paradise until you notice the plastic. Paul Sharp from the Two Hands Project is working to change that. He's seen it all: bottle caps, straws, plastic bags, and even a lost sandal or two. It's all the kind of stuff that slips through the cracks of waste management systems and ends up on the beach. The worst part? Plastic never truly goes away. It breaks into tiny pieces called microplastics, which soak up toxins and get eaten by sea creatures, eventually making their way up the food chain. But Paul believes there's hope. If companies design better, less disposable products, this mess could be avoided. Until then, every piece of trash picked up is a small step toward cleaner shores. Tragic encounter. A 16-foot whale shark washed up at the Navotas fish port in Manila, its body tangled in crisp packets and plastic bags, a haunting reminder of the growing plastic pollution crisis. Locals were shocked as they hauled the massive creature from the filthy waters, revealing the extent of the contamination. The cause of demise remains uncertain, but officials speculate that the whale shark might have been swept in by high waves from a recent storm, or probably was suffocated by inhaling plastics. This tragic sight was a stark reminder of the impact plastic pollution has on marine life, even for the largest creatures of the ocean. Red water. In 2018, a haunting scene unfolded along a river in Indian Punjab. Fishermen woke to find the water littered with lifeless fish, a grim testament to an unseen catastrophe. The cause? Just the night before, factory waste had been dumped into the river, turning its waters an eerie shade of red by morning. The toxic discharge not only poisoned the fish, but also shattered the livelihoods of the local fishing community. Whether those responsible were held accountable remains unclear, but incidents like these are becoming disturbingly common. It's a harsh reminder of the cost of unchecked pollution, especially in vulnerable regions. 700 ib grouper. If the impact of pollution on marine life isn't hitting hard yet, this might change that. In 2021, the shores of Tampa Bay witnessed something haunting. A massive 700-pound grouper washed ashore, accompanied by countless smaller fish. Groupers are deep-sea giants. They don't end up on beaches unless something's seriously wrong. Experts were quick to connect the dots. Water pollution, most likely from an oil spill, was the culprit. It's a grim reminder of how even the ocean's depths aren't safe from human negligence. When creatures of the deep are fleeing to the shore, it's a clear sign that the waters they call home are no longer safe. Decades of warning. Water pollution isn't a modern-day problem. Our oceans have been crying out for help for decades. Take this haunting incident from years ago. Disturbing footage showed a massive dolphin being hoisted by a crane, its lifeless body a grim spectacle. Norwegian authorities revealed that plastic bags thrown into the sea were the culprit. This wasn't just a random occurrence, it was a warning. Even back then, our careless disposal of plastic was wreaking havoc on marine life. It's a chilling reminder that the consequences of pollution aren't new, they've just been ignored for far too long. Sewage spill. If you're still wondering how sewage affects marine life, check this out. Back in 2022, after some heavy rain, officials in Sussex made a huge mistake. They dumped raw sewage straight into the ocean. The fallout was a total disaster. The sea life got thrown into turmoil and the beach became unsafe. Even though they put out warnings, it was too late to undo the damage. It wasn't just about dirty water. It messed up the whole balance of marine ecosystems. This incident really highlighted how our choices on land can have seriously bad effects on the ocean. Endless cycle. Every year, 8 million metric tons of plastic enter the ocean, the equivalent of 5 bags of trash for every foot of coastline around the world. Once in the water, this plastic spreads everywhere, drifting with global currents, breaking down into tiny pieces and sinking to the seafloor. These fragments end up inside marine animals, becoming part of the food chain. The problem isn't just about cleaning up the mess, it's about fixing the system. Right now, plastic production is linear make, use, and throw away. To break this cycle, plastic needs to be designed for reuse or made biodegradable. But it's not just plastic causing trouble. Industrial, agricultural, and urban waste are also polluting the ocean, creating critical zones where nothing can survive. To solve this, farming practices must change, focusing on soil health to reduce runoff. This isn't just an environmental issue, it's a challenge for every link in the chain, from manufacturers to consumers. Plastic message. In In the past few years, sightings of sea creatures washing ashore in the Philippines went mostly unnoticed. Even when a sperm whale was found with a stomach full of plastic, few seemed to care. But that changed when a 73-foot blue whale appeared on the shores of one of the most polluted cities in the country. It looked real at first, massive and decomposing, but as people got closer, they realized it wasn't an animal at all. It was entirely made of plastic. This was Greenpeace Philippines' powerful message to the 2017 ASEAN leaders demanding action against plastic pollution. The installation went viral, reaching over 100 countries within 24 hours and sparking a global conversation. Although the whale was fake, the issue it highlighted was painfully real. It was a stark reminder of what could be washing ashore next if nothing changes. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do like it and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again. Thank you once again.